This video is a companion to the 1920s Welmade Dress pattern and instructions which has been released for free as part of the Plus Pattern project. This project was part of the programming that was released by the museum at MFIT to go along with their virtual exhibit called The Roaring Twenties and the Swinging Sixties. The Plus Pattern project was created to help bring more focus to larger size clothing, which museums don't often display. They created patterns from 5 original garments of the 1920s, which were on loan to the program. The Plus Pattern project was inspired by the LACMA pattern project. The Welmade Dress is one of the most complex patterns included in this release. Having been one of the pattern testers, I decided to create this video to help others out there conquer what seemed to be the most difficult parts of the construction process. Please make sure that you download and read the pattern instructions from the museum site to use along with this video. They contain more details of the overall dress. The video was made before the release, so the museum site will have the most up-to-date information. The dress is comprised of 3 parts: the tunic, the undershirt, and the belt. In this section, we're going to review the undershirt. When you go to cut out the front pieces, you will notice that there is a diagram attached for the special finishing of the closure. This extra length is not included in the pattern piece, so make sure that you make the addition to the length on both sides. The sleeve is made of 4 pieces. Together, they will create a fake cuff. Once you have sewn the cuff lining pieces to the bottom of the sleeve and the sleeve sections labeled front, you will press the lining inward. And in a single line of stitching, you will create a tuck and secure the lining to the sleeve. This tuck line is what creates the fake cuff look on the outside of the sleeve. Once you have done that, you will sew up the back seam and close up the sleeve. The arm guards are individual pieces and are sewn together at the ends. The sleeve head is then attached to the smaller circle formed on the arm guard. The seams of the arm guards end up being centered with the undersleeve. The arm guards are attached to the undershirt only at their outer edge with top stitching. The shoulder and the side seams of your undershirt should match up with the seams of the arm guard. Remember that when you're cutting out the fronts of the undershirt, you add the lengths needed for the special finishing. I forgot to do that here in my mock-up, and I did want to show you so that you don't forget as well. Let's take a closer look at the special underwaist finishing. First, we're going to look at the proper right. This is done before any stitching. Here, you can see the inside fold. This part of the fold is going to completely cover the other side. This whip stitch side is where you'll be placing your hooks. After you place your hooks, you'll do the machine stitching line. Now let's look at the proper left. The folds are in the opposite direction. The bottom fold is going to stick out more than the top fold. The machine stitching line is going to be made first. Then you will sew on the eyes to the top fold and whip stitch it closed. Once you've completed the hooks and eyes for the closure, you can add the stomacher to the undershirt. The museum documents that come with a pattern have even more details about the finishing for the edges of the overall dress. When you first start with the front pattern piece, do not trace all of the lines that you see on it. This needs to be done in a specific order. The first thing to trace is the dart. You will sew it, press it, and put the pattern piece back on the fabric to trace the pleat lines. You will make the pleats and sew them in a specific manner. The dart you made is going to end up being taken into the pleat fold, as you can see in this example. If you don't sew them in the correct order, you will end up with pleats that are uneven, as you can see on this side, and it will affect the width of your tunic. Both the front and the back of the dress have pleats. The pleats are sewn in a specific way, and the stitch line goes only about halfway down the length of the tunic. This shows the way that the pleats are folded on the outside. In order to sew the pleats together, it will be easier if you pick it up and hold the outside pleat lines together. Make sure you pull out the rest of the fabric which makes up the pleat so that you don't end up stitching it. This line right here is where you will create your stitch line. Once you have sewn the pleats, put the pattern back on the fabric so that you can trace the lines for the neck, shoulder, and arm side. You can go ahead and cut those out. Once those are done, cut into the marking for the center front. Now you'll be able to attach the facings. The belt piece pattern will give you several pieces to make from it. Each of these pieces will need to have sewing allowance added to the pattern piece when you are tracing them. The narrow pieces have a decoration that goes across them. I found it easiest to do them all at once. I used a temporary adhesive to hold the string decorations together until they were sewn to the middle-sized pieces. To sew these pieces together, you'll be using the seam allowance you added to all of them. The seam allowance of the mid-sized piece is what will be connected to the seam allowance of the small piece. Here is where you will make the stitch line. This is what the inside of the belt will look like once you have connected the small pieces to the medium pieces. You will then connect those to the large back piece. You will repeat this process twice, as the belt is made up of two long connected pieces and decorated with buttons on the outside and snaps on the inside. Here is a walkthrough of the finished mock-up. This proper left is where you will have a closure for the tunic, but I left this side open so that I could show you the inside. The stomacher is tacked onto the tunic at the piece marked in the pattern. This is where the underwaist would be closed with the hooks and eyes. The shoulders are tacked together at the underwaist and the tunic. This is where your snaps would go for the proper closure of the left side of the tunic. I hope this video, along with the plus pattern project files, will help you complete your own 1920s well-made dress. Please feel free to tag me in your Instagram posts so that I can see your dress, or leave a comment below with a link to where you shared your finished project. Happy sewing, everyone!